I want to take some time now to change decimals to percentages and then percentages into decimals. And so we've got this problem. If I've got 0.35, okay, the easiest way to change a decimal to a percent is to remember that 0.35, if we say the name the correct way, if we call it 35 hundredths, then it should be very obvious that this is 35 out of 100. And so really all I've got to do with a decimal, if it's in hundredths, is just put the percent sign. These are all three the same number. So 35 hundredths is 35%. Let me give you some other examples. What I want you to do is practice saying the decimal correctly. And if you say the decimal correctly, I'll call these A, B, C, and D. And if you say these correctly, you'll very easily be able to make them into percentage. Okay, 0.07, which I want you to say correctly. I've just said it how it's written. 0.02, 0.85, and 0.7. Why don't you pause the video, write these down, and you make them each into a percent, and then we'll compare answers. Okay, I'm hoping you've taken the time to do that, and I hope you said 0.07 is 7 hundredths, which is 7%. 0.02 is 2 hundredths, which is 2%. 0.85 is 85 hundredths, which is 85%. I think we realize that the decimals are easier because a lot of times the decimals are already in hundredths. And then 0.7, this is where it gets interesting. This is not 7 hundredths, this is 7 tenths. 7 tenths is actually the same as 70 hundredths. And so we should get 70%. I want you to notice the famous decimal trick, which is this. If you notice we went from the decimal to the percentage, the digits never change because they're already in base 10. The decimal just moved to the right 2 places. And we get 35, we get 7, we get 2, we get 85. And on the 70, we get an extra space. And that always works. You can move the decimal. Now let's try it in reverse. Let's change percentages into decimals. Okay, and so here we go. Once again, this just comes down to saying things right. And so the problem I've got is 43%. And I want to make 43% in the decimal. Well, let's talk about what 43% means. 43% means 43 out of 100. So if we change our decimals to fractions, then we recognize 43% is 43 hundredths. Well, 43 hundredths as a decimal is 0.43. These are all the same number. Let me give you some of these to try on your own. A, we're going to make 28% into a decimal. B is going to be 88%. C is going to be 30%. And D is going to be 5%. Why don't you try those on your own? Pause the video when you do it, and then come back and check your answers. Okay, I hope you've taken the time to look at some of that. What I hope we see is this 28% is 28 hundredths, which is 0.28. 88% is 88 hundredths, which is 0.88. 30% is 30 hundredths, which can be written as 0.30, but we should recognize that that last 0 is not necessary, and we can write it as 3 tenths. 30 hundredths and 3 tenths are the same number. 3 tenths is just a simpler and better way to write it, and so I think we should be in the habit of writing 0.3, 3 tenths, not 0.30. 5%, this messes people up because we want to make that 5 tenths, but let's remember it's 5 hundredths because it's a percent. And so 5 hundredths is 0.05. And those are our answers. What we should notice is it's the exact opposite of what we showed you when we changed to percentage. Remember how we moved the decimal 2 places to the right? This time they go from percent to a decimal. I hope you've noticed the digits didn't change. The decimal just moved to the right 2 places on all of these. And of course, in an empty spot, we put a 0. Finally, there's one last thing I want to add. We've been talking about decimals here. I want to kind of connect this to the last video, though. We've changed fractions to percentage. I want us very quickly to change a percentage to a fraction. It's not as bad as you think. We've got the number 40%. Almost wrote the wrong thing. I was getting ahead of myself. 40%. If we remember that percent means out of 100, percentage to fraction's really the easiest of the things. So all we've got to do is write the fraction. And if it's percent, it's always over 100. And really changing percents to fractions is just simplifying the fractions. 40/100th is the correct value. We just have to simplify the fraction. I can divide both of these by 20, and I get 2/5. And so I know that those are equivalent. Anytime you have a percentage, you can put it over 100, make it a fraction. It can be changed to a decimal. It can be simplified. Knowing your percentages are fractions with 100 in the denominator is really the key to all of this.